If you study history with the seriousness it deserves, you already know that true defensive skill wasn't developed in peaceful times or by theorists behind desks. It was shaped by ordinary people who were forced into extraordinary situations, especially during the Second World War. And before we start breaking down these forgotten tactics, do yourself a favour and subscribe to the Prepper Historian, because this channel is dedicated to giving you the kind of historically grounded survival knowledge that actually works when the world stops behaving politely. Let's open with something most people overlook. During war, entire populations became part of national defence networks. They weren't soldiers, but their survival depended on systems and methods so effective and so practical that many still apply today if you strip away modern assumptions. People defending their homes were dealing with rationing, blackout rules, supply chain breakdowns, mass uncertainty, and the constant threat of sudden violence or disruption. When you dig into their behaviour and methods, you start to see a blueprint for resilient living that modern preppers tend to talk about but rarely execute with the same discipline. Civilian home defence worked because it began with preparation long before the crisis hit. In many countries under threat of bombing or invasion, citizens were trained to set up their homes in ways that reduced vulnerability long before hostilities reached their doorstep. The British ARP system required households to maintain blackout curtains, sandbags at vulnerable points, and secure storage for essentials. This wasn't cosmetic preparedness, it was structural. If you apply this principle today, the modern equivalent is hardening weak points in your home before you ever need them. That could be reinforcing window frames, adding layered lighting options, including low light modes, organising supplies so that they're accessible in darkness, and pre-mapping safe zones inside your home. The WWII mindset was simple. Reactiveness is failure. Readiness is survival. WWII home defence worked because families created decentralised micro-shelters inside the house, not just one designated refuge. During the Blitz, many households built indoor protected corners using thick furniture, interior walls, and improvised shielding. The Anderson and Morrison shelters helped, but families often added a second or third fallback inside bedrooms or hallways. This distributed protection reduced casualties when structures collapsed or when the main shelter became inaccessible. Today, this principle applies directly to modern disasters, from severe storms to civil unrest. Instead of relying on one safe room, set up multiple fallback points. Reinforce an interior hallway with a bookcase and a mattress. Designate a non-windowed bathroom as a second fallback, and prepare a basement corner as your long-duration fallback. You're not duplicating gear, you're duplicating options, which is exactly what WWII. WWII home defence worked because communication wasn't optional. It was a lifeline that households actively maintained. In occupied territories and frontline regions, families created structured communication routines. These routines included pre-arranged signals for neighbours, quiet hours protocols, and handoff methods for messages when normal channels failed. Even under surveillance, networks formed because everyone knew information meant survival. Today, this translates into building a communication plan in case modern infrastructure collapses. That could be as straightforward as teaching household members specific phrases, or timing windows, maintaining charged power banks, establishing a neighbourhood check-in ritual, or keeping an old-school wind-up radio. You're echoing a WWII principle: communication only works if it exists before the crisis. WWII home defence worked because households practiced rapid concealment of essential items and documentation. When occupation forces or emergency teams entered homes, families who survived long-term often relied on concealment techniques that sound dramatic now, but were standard then. They hid radios in flower bins, emergency food inside hollowed furniture, and documents under floorboards. This wasn't paranoia, it was legal survival. In modern times, the principle isn't about hiding contraband, but about securing valuables and essential supplies, so thieves can't strip your preparedness in minutes. A modern application could be creating false bottom drawers for backup cash, dispersing supplies into several small caches instead of one large pantry, and keeping duplicates of key documents in concealed locations. The rule is timeless. Whatever a single intruder can find in under 20 seconds is not secure. You know, WWII home defence really worked because households understood that lighting discipline was the difference between being targeted and being ignored. Blackouts weren't suggestions. They were enforced because, well, one household's carelessness could guide an enemy bomber to an entire block. People learned to use minimal lighting, shielded lanterns, and low-level task lights that couldn't be detected outside. This principle, honestly, has modern relevance for any scenario involving civil unrest or grid-down situations. Your lighting should signal nothing to outsiders. A modern approach could involve covering windows with thermal curtains, using dim red lights that preserve night vision without broadcasting your presence, and maintaining glow markers inside the home for silent navigation. Ingenuity's light control saved neighbourhoods. Today, it reduces your visibility in a crisis. WWII home defence worked because the community, not the individual, was the first layer of security. Neighbourhood watchers weren't hobby groups, they were frontline defence networks. People took shifts, patrolled their streets, and reported anything unusual immediately. This wasn't government-driven paranoia, it was collective survival. The reason it worked is because it built overlapping safety nets around every home. Applying this today means strengthening ties with neighbours you trust, forming silent mutual aid agreements, and coordinating response roles long before an emergency hits. One household can be overwhelmed, but a street working together is much harder to disrupt. WWII home defence tactics still work today because they were built on mindset, not materials. Every tactic, from blackout discipline to concealed supplies, worked because ordinary citizens committed to daily habits that protected their homes in a time of constant threat. You don't need a bunker to apply these principles. You need the discipline to think ahead, the humility to learn from those who lived through true hardship, and the willingness to structure your home around resilience rather than convenience. If you found real value in these forgotten WWII tactics, make sure you subscribe to The Prepper Historian and share this video with someone who respects real, historically tested survival knowledge.